Hank had always cherished the quiet life. After serving 3 decades in the military, he finally found solace in his cozy suburban home, nestled in a peaceful neighborhood where everyone respected one another's space. His days were spent fishing at the lake, tending to his well-kept lawn, and enjoying his retirement with the dignity he had earned. But all that serenity came crashing down the moment he returned from his week-long fishing trip. As he pulled into his driveway, his eyes narrowed at the sight before him. Sitting comfortably inside his garage was a sleek, silver luxury sedan that certainly did not belong to him. The gall of it! His garage door, which he always left closed, was now slightly ajar, revealing this intruder of a vehicle as if mocking him. A slow burn of irritation bubbled in his chest as he parked his truck and stepped out, scanning the car with a sharp, discerning eye. It wasn't his daughter's. It wasn't his neighbor's. It wasn't anyone he knew. And the worst part, it was parked perfectly, as though someone had deliberately and carefully claimed the space as their own. This wasn't an accident. This was arrogance. Hank, a man of patience and principle, clenched his jaw. Whoever had the audacity to do this was about to learn a lesson they wouldn't forget. With years of discipline ingrained into his very soul, Hank didn't let anger get the best of him. Instead, he did what any rational man would do. He knocked on a few doors, asking around to see if any of his neighbors knew who the car belonged to. But the moment he reached the house directly across from his, the mystery unraveled itself in the most infuriating way. The door swung open, and there stood a woman in her mid-40s, dressed in designer yoga pants, oversized sunglasses perched on her head, and a freshly manicured hand holding a cup of overpriced iced coffee. The moment she saw him, her lips curled into an insincere smile, the kind people wore when they were pretending to be polite but were really dismissing you in their head. "Can I help you?" she asked in a tone that made it clear she wasn't really offering help at all. Hank got straight to the point. "Ma'am, there's a car in my garage that doesn't belong to me. Would it happen to be yours?" Her response was a casual shrug, followed by the most infuriating words he had ever heard. "Oh yeah, that's mine. I needed a place to park." Just like that. No apology. No explanation. Just a blatant declaration of entitlement, as if she had the right to decide where she could and couldn't park without so much as asking. Hank felt his fists tighten at his sides, his military training the only thing keeping his temper in check. He had dealt with stubborn recruits, insubordinate officers, and war-zone chaos. But this was a new kind of battle, one against sheer audacity. Taking a deep breath, Hank kept his voice calm but firm. "You needed a place to park? And you thought my garage was a good choice." The woman, who finally introduced herself as Stephanie, sighed as if he was the one being difficult. "Well, yeah, I was in a hurry. My driveway is too small for my car, and honestly, you were gone, so I figured, what's the harm?" "The harm? The harm?" Hank could feel his patience wearing thinner than an old fishing line about to snap. "The harm, ma'am, is that this is my property. You can't just waltz onto someone's land and claim it for yourself because it's convenient for you." But Stephanie just rolled her eyes and took another sip of her coffee, clearly unbothered. "Look, it's not a big deal. I'll move it when I have time, okay? Just be a good neighbor." A good neighbor? Oh, now she had crossed the line. Hank had fought for his country, worked his entire life to own his home, and here stood this entitled woman, acting as if he should thank her for violating his space. And that was when he made his decision. If she wanted to act like his garage was hers, she could stay in it for a while. Hank had never been a man of petty revenge. But this wasn't just about a car in his garage. This was about respect, about accountability, about teaching a lesson to someone who had clearly never faced consequences a day in her life. Without another word, he turned on his heel, walked back to his house, and grabbed his remote control. With a single press of a button, the garage door slid shut, trapping Stephanie's car inside. But Hank wasn't done. He walked to the side entrance of the garage and manually locked the deadbolt, ensuring there was no way in or out without his say-so. He checked twice, making sure every possible escape was sealed. And then he packed his bags again. But this time, it wasn't for a fishing trip. No, this time, he was taking a personal trip to visit an old army buddy a few states over. He wasn't going to stick around for the fireworks. He wasn't going to give Stephanie the satisfaction of an argument. If she thought she could park in his garage without permission, she was about to learn how inconvenient her own choices could be. What Hank didn't know, and what made this entire situation far more poetic, was that just before he locked the garage, Stephanie had decided to step inside to grab her expensive designer sunglasses from the passenger seat of her car. She had assumed, of course, that she could come and go as she pleased. But the moment the garage door shut and locked behind her, she realized something horrifying. She was trapped. No phone signal. No way out. No neighbors around to hear her muffled screams. The luxury car that had once made her feel powerful and elite had now become her prison. At first, she was annoyed. Then, she was frustrated. Then, slowly but surely, frustration turned to fear. As hours passed and the temperature inside the garage fluctuated, as her stomach growled and her throat dried out, as the reality of the situation settled in, Stephanie came face to face with something she had never truly experienced before: powerlessness. She had spent her entire life walking over others, bending rules to her convenience, treating people as tools in her privileged world. But here, inside the four walls of someone else's property, she was nothing. No status. No special treatment. Just a person who had made a very bad decision. And for the first time in a long time, she had no one to blame but herself.